Hey guys, how are you? Hope you're having an amazing day so far. As you read the title, you're probably wondering, okay, so what's going on, right? The title of today's video is How Do We Deal with Overwhelm? Now, before we begin, I just want to explain a little bit of why we're asking that question. The reason why, right, that's the title of the video today, is because personally, I felt overwhelmed this week. Right, personally, when I talked to my friend yesterday night, he said he felt overwhelmed. And I realized it's actually, the problem isn't that we're just sitting around doing nothing, but everyone has so many tasks that we just feel overwhelmed. I mean, is that how you feel? Oh my gosh, there's so many tasks. Okay, it's actually week 1 for people going to UCLA right now, so maybe not. But right, there will come a time that we just feel overwhelmed. So it's actually a very, very common thing. And today, I wish to spend a little bit of time to dive deeper into thinking, okay, why do we feel overwhelmed? Talking about how we can deal with it. There's actually going to be 4 tips into how we can deal with this. And at the end, offer some tangible solutions, right? Tangible solutions. Before we begin, I just want to point out that this is not something that I can just click and change for you, but rather I hope to provide some new knowledge and some new perspectives and hopefully a mindset shift into what we're thinking. Okay, I hope to use my past examples of what I went through, my past mistakes, so that you don't have to make the same mistakes again. Or if you're making those mistakes and that's how you're feeling, okay, maybe these tips can get you a step further into where you want to be. So first question, why do we feel overwhelmed? Right? Why do we feel overwhelmed? You may ask, yes, I feel overwhelmed a lot, but why is that happening? Well, actually, overwhelming is good. It's actually a very, very common thing, which just means, right, we're growing. Why do we feel overwhelmed? We're feeling overwhelmed because the task that we have is more than what we previously handled before. We're feeling overwhelmed because before our levels are here, right? We're dealing here at this level, but now our task asks us to be here. And every time we have to be here, right, there's a disconnect that previous skill sets are no longer capable of using here. So we need a new skill set, a new mindset to deal with the task at hand. That's why we are overwhelmed, because we need a new thing, right? Now, how do we deal with this, right? How do we deal with overwhelmness? Let me just first talk about, right, before we dive into the tips, a couple signs that overwhelming is happening right now. Do you just feel like, right, you have a lot of tasks? Maybe you have a schedule, you're very organized, you have a very set schedule, but man, sometimes we can't control those schedules. Sometimes this person took 10 minutes longer than what we expected. And boom, this just creates a kind of pressure for the next task and the task after and the task after, especially when that happens in the morning, right? If someone takes longer in the morning, or if we didn't finish this task exactly how we want it to be in the morning, this creates a huge disconnect. And bam, we're just feeling like, oh my gosh, what should we do? Okay, we have this schedule and now it's bad now. Do you ever feel that, right? Or do you ever feel this way? At the end of the day, you finish your day, you finish your task, and you're like, gosh, I wish I had more time because I have this project that I want to do. I have this summer internship I want to apply for. I want this research position I want to do. But I don't have more time. My time is all packed, right? I can't squeeze in more time in there. But I also feel burned out. So what should I do? Okay, now if feeling this way, these 4 tips might help you. In order to go about this, I want to explain first the tip number 1, which is essentially, right, a different shifting perspectives. Now, this shift is basically saying that the problem isn't us having too many tasks, but us not having priority over those tasks. You see, one of the problems I faced in the beginning is to try to squeeze in as many things I can do in a day. I want to fill up my schedule. I want to fill up boom, 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 and feeling really good about myself. But what happens when we have too many things and the schedule doesn't work? We feel overwhelmed. We don't know what to do. Let's give you a simple example of how this works. Imagine we go to a really nice restaurant, right? And imagine this nice restaurant, people immediately after we step in, just give us 10 delicious meals at the same time. Okay, it's like those potlucks, that 10 delicious meals. So we want to eat some of this, but we also want to eat some of this, but we also want to eat some of that. And there's so many things we want to eat, but oh my gosh, that's so much food. And boom, we didn't eat a lot and we just feel very full. Versus going to a restaurant, we sit down, okay? They bring us some bread, right? Usually it's some bread. We order some appetizers, we start talking, start getting into the meal, order some main course, start eating, and then, right, order some dessert at the end if we're feeling full or feeling nice that day. What's the difference there, right? Well, the second one, there's priority. The second one is saying, we gotta finish this first because this is more important, then we finish next one, then finish next one. Versus the first one, just all things at once. So we see how simple priority allows us to feel really good when doing the same thing, even sometimes more, because then we feel a sense of organization, we can achieve more. So that's why Overwhelm, tip number 1, right, is to prioritize over tasks, okay? Instead of letting tasks just pile up. So you might be wondering, right, how do we prioritize? That's a question that I had when I first get on this topic. How do we exactly prioritize? What's a priority? How do we do this? Tip number 2. That's the introduction of the 2 concepts, 2 variables. One is importance and one is urgency. Importance meaning if this tasks add value to your future. If 5 years from now, you see this task adding tangible value to your future, getting you closer there. Urgency is basically saying, is this urgent? Do we have to do this right now? Right? Do we have to get this done by this week? I usually do it by the weeks. By this week is your deadline for this. Okay? For example, homework. Homework are important because they add value to your GPA or whatever we do, right? They're also urgent. Very urgent. Sometimes, right, a lot of homework are due this next day or a couple of days from now. So they're urgent. Now, one mistake I made was thinking the important and urgent tasks are my priorities. So I fill in my schedule with those tasks with homework. And when I finish, I don't have time for anything else. Okay? However, truly prioritize, meaning prioritize the important things, but that are not urgent. Let me give you an example. What are some important things that are not urgent in your life? Those are things that are, for example, research opportunities, internships, for health, maybe exercise, for relationship, maybe relationship with our parents, establishing relationship. They're important, right? Because they move us forward. That's what we want to do in 5 years. Because they allow us to see the bigger picture, the bigger direction. But they're not urgent. You see, there's no consequence to not applying for that job or not applying for that internship. At least not in the moment. So it's really, really easy to neglect that. Now, a tip that really, really propelled my personal effectiveness is actually prioritizing the important but not urgent tasks first, do it in the beginning. So my day before lunch is usually dedicated to those tasks. And you might be wondering, okay, Danny, so we don't have time for those urgent and important tasks anymore, right? Like homework, we don't have time for homework. That's true, we don't have time, but that's the point. According to Parkinsons Law, okay, work expands until time allocated to be. Because we don't have time, we're forced to be now more creative, more effective to do things that we have to do. Because we don't have enough time, we can't just sit on our butt and just say, hey, we have 10 hours for this assignment. Let me just check my Instagram. We have 5 hours more. Let me just walk around and do stuff. But rather, we tackle it right away. And we get the same work done. How does this work? Have you ever, let's say we have two weeks for an assignment, for a project, right? In the beginning, we don't feel a sense of urgency. We feel like, okay, so the project, we still have time. So what do? Sometimes we put it off. Procrastination, right? We put it off until a week passed. Still, we got a week. We can hang out with friends. It's all okay, right? Okay, so we put it off until the day before, the night before. Man, when I was in college, when I was in the library, I remember those nights where the night before was the sprint. The night before was a night filled with caffeine. It was filled with we did before. I wouldn't recommend this. Drugs, Adderall, things that allow us to focus, right? What does that do? That creates this thing that, oh, that'll be okay. I can just continue delaying the urgency and I don't have to do this, right? But instead, we shorten the time, allow ourselves. Now we have to tackle them right away. So you see how that way we actually get more done. Honestly, sometimes our quality actually increases. Okay, so that's the first 2 tips. I see that it's running towards about 10 minutes now. Okay, so I don't want to overwhelm you with information, but those 2 tips could be pretty useful in terms of your just to get started on this week. Okay, so next week we can continue talking about this. We have 2 more next week. Okay, but continue talking about this, how to deal with overwhelm. And if there's anything that's unclear, right, I know that this is quite a bit of information. Anything that's unclear, please feel free to drop it in the comments and I can reach out to make sure we're on the same page. All right, sounds good? Well, thank you, Emmy. Actually, I wasn't going to record this video. That's why the format's a little bit different. But she sent a message to me saying, hey, this is accountability. You have to get a video out today. So, man, I'm getting this out by this week. So thank you, Emmy, for the accountability. And with that said, see you guys next week. Until next time, do more.